over first to the chaplain.
Thank you, Chairman. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
You have called us, O God, to be your people. You have loved us and chosen us for your own. Clothe us with your compassion, your kindness, your humility, your gentleness and patience. Help us to remember always the needs of others, and we hold before you particularly the people of the Ukraine, that, appropriately supported, they may overcome those who seek to have dominance over them. We give thanks to you for all those who seek to bring aid to the suffering, the dispossessed, the homeless, the refugee. And we pray that we make appropriate provision as far as we are able to welcome into our communities those who are without homes. We ask this in the name of Jesus the Lord. Amen. Amen. Almighty God, you have so linked our lives with one another that all we do affects others, for good or ill, the lives of others. So guide us in the ways of the work we do. We give you thanks for all the work of this county council, of all its members, and we hold before you those who are unwell, those who need our prayers, praying particularly for Ian Lawson, that you may bless him with hope and comfort and courage, restore him to wholeness of life. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. I invite you, if you would like to join with me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Okay, another welcome to everybody. We'll go straight into the agenda. Item 1, apologies. Are there any apologies for absence?
Turn on the mic. Is the microphone on? Excellent. Mr. Chairman, we have received apologies from the following members: from Jill Burnett, Ian Lawson, James Salisbury, Conor Wileman, David Williams, and we understand that Tina Clements will be arriving soon.
Thank you. I'd like to call Councillor Mark DeVille.
Chairman, thank you. Good morning. Apologies, please, for Ross Ward. Sadly, Chairman, Ross's brother passed away last year after a short illness, and I'm sure you'll join me and the rest of the members in offering our very best wishes to Ross and his family at this extremely sad time for them.
In light of Mr Lawson's continued ill health, and for the purpose of Section 85 of the Local Government Act 1972, I move that his continued absence from council meetings be authorised for a further 6 months. Is that agreed? Agreed. Does any member wish to declare an interest? Item 3, confirmation minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 10th of February 2022 be signed as a true record. Is that agreed? Thank you. Okay, on this occasion, I'm going to take item 7 as the first item. Leader.
Terrible times indeed. Witnessing conflict on the continent of Europe, the like of which we haven't seen since the end of the Second World War. The people of Ukraine are bearing a very, very heavy price for Putin's illegal and unacceptable invasion. This county, this authority, and all authorities across Staffordshire stand ready with our arms open to receive those people who are fleeing the conflict in Ukraine. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to take the opportunity to read a letter that was written by all 9 local authority leaders across this county last week to the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary that indicates the strength of our support and our combined efforts to welcome those people who are fleeing the horrendous, horrendous war crimes in Ukraine. This is from the 8 district and borough council leaders and myself as the leader of the county council. Dear Prime Minister, as the world has watched the horrific events unfold in Ukraine, citizens living in free and democratic countries have considered how they can best play their part in assisting with this unfolding crisis. We welcome the actions taken so far by this government against the Putin regime and are proud to see that President Zelensky counts the United Kingdom amongst his greatest allies. But we must now do more. We write to you as Staffordshire local authority leaders to let you know that we stand ready and able to welcome those displaced by war in Europe. We have the skills, the authority, and the willingness to assist in housing and supporting families seeking refuge from the horrors of war. We urge you to clear the bureaucratic path as quickly as possible for those families seeking safe passage who urgently need our assistance. Signed by the 9 leaders across Staffordshire. We will also have seen the letter that I circulated to all of you a couple of days ago from Michael Gove, setting out how this scheme to welcome Ukrainian refugees into our country and into our county will proceed. I know that there are people around the chamber who have constituents who have already acted on that, and that is a wonderful thing. Staffordshire stepped up, our communities stepped up during the COVID crisis. We're asking them to step up again, and I have no doubt whatsoever they will do so. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Leader. At the concerted group meeting, we decided that one person would speak from each borough or district on this matter. I've also spoken to the Leader of the Opposition, and I've granted them the permission to have 2 people speak, and also to our independent, should she wish to speak. So the next person I will call then is the Leader of the Opposition. Councillor Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. First of all, I welcome very much the letter from the county and from the district councils. And I'm sure that as with COVID, the tremendous generosity of the British people will be shown towards Ukrainian people. And I've already had constituents asking about the scheme. I'm not quite sure how people identify families by name that they wish to host, but I'm sure that hopefully that will be resolved. But I suppose my concern is, how will we ensure that those fleeing the trauma of war are not exploited by the few who want to make money from trafficking? With refugees arriving imminently, does the County Council have sufficient staff to carry out checks to ensure the safety of all involved? I mean, both the people who are receiving and those people who are needing to be hosted within a very, very tight time frame. My concern is that those generous people taking in refugees could be undermined by those few who want to profit from the tragedy. Of course, there will always be situations as well when refugee placements for up to 6 months do not work out for whatever reason. You know, these people are very traumatized, they're going to have mental health issues, maybe physical health issues. So those situations may break down for the best of reasons. So what I'm concerned about is that we have the backup to deal with those situations when they arise, to make sure that refugees aren't passed from pillar to post, from home to home, but they do have a stable place that they can reside in Staffordshire. We have many communities in Staffordshire that have connections with Ukraine, and I hope that we're making sure that we have active links with those communities, because they will be vital in resettling refugees from Ukraine. And so I hope that they're actively involved. We all want to do our bit for Ukrainians, and it's vital that this goodwill is matched by good organisation. It would be a disaster if vulnerable refugees are confronted by exploitation or difficult domestic circumstances in the UK. In Leek, there's a gentleman, Mr. Richardson, who married a Ukrainian. He was a college lecturer at Leek College, and he actually escaped from the war zone and is now returning to Leek. So for some people, it's very personal.
Thank you. Councillor David Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I follow on from the points that have been made so far and just ask, when does a newborn baby start to feel fear? Is it at the point of birth? Is it before birth? Or is it at the time when the mother picks up the small child and takes it to her breast, and the child then fears the same fear that her mother or his mother felt? Chairman, when we look at the terrible situations that we see on television every day, and we see the horrific things that are coming from the Ukraine, and the terrors that have been put before people, then how do we respond to that? What's our way forward? Chairman, how does one feel when you have your house bombed and you have people above you who are raining down bombs with the intention of killing you and your children, your family, and your wider friends? Chairman, that's the most horrific situation that you could possibly imagine. And I suppose that few of us will have a realistic experience of what that's been like. Chairman, I can tell you from personal experience, because I was born in the middle of an air raid, and there were Nazis trying to bomb our house, which they eventually succeeded in. My father was very seriously injured and spent a year in hospital afterwards, and went from being a 30-year-old man into being an old man overnight. Chairman, those are situations which fortunately for a very, very long time we have not experienced in this country. My mother once said, when I said to her, what did she think that she was doing, bringing a child into this world in the midst of war and the threat of war? And her comment was that at the end, we knew we were going to win. And I would like to pass that on to the people of Ukraine, that with our help and with our support and with the work which we feel that we can do to help the Ukrainian people, that they will actually be able to feel at the end of the day we're going to win. But God, what a price we're paying. Chairman, I call on this council and the people of Staffordshire to give the support that we need to do to help those people that will relocate here and provide them the sort of comfort which will allow them to recover in some ways from the trauma that they've experienced, and ultimately return to Ukraine and build a new state and sadly build new cities. Chairman, thank you for your time, and I'm sorry if the experience is very personal to me, but I do know what that is like, and I cry for the people of Ukraine. So open your hearts and let's do everything we possibly can. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Smith, thank you very much for those comments. Councillor Jill Hood, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't have a script. I'm not wearing a ribbon. But I think every single person that we look at or we walk past in the street, we know the horror that they're feeling against this dreadful, dreadful war that's going on. My concerns are obviously for the Ukrainian people, Chairman, but in particular for those families who will be relocating. And I worry that we are going to be able to give them the support for the trauma that they're all going to be experiencing. I see the pictures of all the people who are clutching their pets, their cats, their dogs, clutching their meagre belongings which they've managed to drag from the house that they live in. And yes, marvellous that we've had so many people come forward and say, I'll open my home for you. But I ask this council, can we please lobby the government? You all know certain members, MPs, ask them if they can give us the resources to give the counselling and the therapy that these poor people are going to be needing. Can we also think about our children, some of them terrified at the prospect of war, not understanding that this is so many thousands of miles away from us, but they hear their adults, their grandparents, friends, talking about nuclear war, what could happen, how the whole world could be involved, talking about pressing that red button. These children are terrified. Many of them are suffering trauma. Can we please think about the resources for the schools to have trained, qualified people to actually counsel our children? It really is the most awful thing, and I know that my vision's stone. I've had so many calls from people asking, where can we take this, where can we take that? Storage is obviously a huge problem for us all in all our divisions, and maybe we can help in some way. People might know of storage for clothes, the amount of clothes that are coming. But please, can we ask the government to give us the funding to help these people when they get to us? And I think, to me, the most important thing is that once, hopefully, that this is all over, that we have the finances and the resources to get these people back to their homeland. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Winnington, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't need to sort of reiterate how terrible the situation is in Ukraine. I've got, through European connections, friends who are from the area, from the Eastern Bloc. It really is devastating for them. It's bad for us, but it's devastating for them. Members who've been here for more than this term, several terms back, will know that we were involved with we actually inherited it from the Labour administration, a partnership with Ivanovo. It's a city, a small town city, 4 hours away from Moscow, and they were into cloth production in particular. I actually went once for what they call the Day of the City, and the military were there, and also met the mayors. Now, when I say mayors, there was a democratically elected mayor and Putin's man. So don't think this is something that's happened overnight. This has been going on for years. Since Mikhail Gorbachev and the breakdown of the Soviet Union, this has been going on. And it's the people, the Russian people, as well as the Ukrainians, as well as the Latvians and everyone else, who are suffering this because they're all under the cosh. And I really do feel sorry for them, because we're democratically elected. We can make our point. We can actually go outside and say, I disagree with war, without being arrested. They can't. It is such a sad, sad time for democracy across the world, but particularly in that area. On a more personal note, I've been involved with something called EIP Agri, which is about food production in particularly the European Union, but the larger area as well. And I had a Teams meeting with them last week, and I can assure you, the people who live in the Eastern Bloc, the people who live in Latvia and the other places I've mentioned, are really, really scared. They're really worried about what's going to come next. They've all been to one girl to Romania to pick her parents up, and it's really, really a horrendous state of affairs. Food production, which is obviously as a farmer, that's important to me. I think all of you eat food. It's really important to all of you. We've got problems in the UK because of sanctions. Fertiliser's gone from £200 to £1,200 this morning, I heard. So a five-fold increase in costs. So farmers will use less fertiliser, which means less food. And I can see that if this carries on for too long, we are going to be in problems, not just in the UK, but around the world, and particularly the poorer areas in the world. But you go to, and this is where it's home to me, and I'm sure for the Atkins, anyone else involved in farming, the guys there want to plant their spring crops. They can't work at night because they'll get targeted by air raids. And during the day, one farmer said he got to clear 100 Russian bodies off his fields before he could work them. It is a really, really horrendous situation when you actually get onto the ground. The people who are there are suffering in so many different ways, not just with the bombings, but just trying to go about their normal lives and produce food for us. Let's not mess around with that one. In Stafford, I've got to say this, Stafford Borough Council did a collection for funds. They got thousands of pounds given by the general public. Brilliant. But really what I want to say is my thoughts, and I'm sure the thoughts of everyone here, are not just for the Ukrainians, but all of those people who are directly affected. It is an horrendous situation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Simon Tagg, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the situation in Ukraine is utterly terrible. I associate myself with all the comments that have previously been made by speakers. Our thoughts are with the many innocent families affected by the ongoing fighting. It's at times like this, it's heartening to see the good in society and people pulling together and helping in any way they can. And Newcastle and Kidsgrove, like everywhere else in Staffordshire, is keen to provide practical support. The Borough Council has provided the We Stand With Ukraine group, a shop unit in Newcastle Town Centre, free of charge, to use for a collection point for community donations. Organisers Maria and Alma, who come from Ukraine and have family members caught up in the conflict, are accepting donations at 17 Merrill Street, next to the old police station on weekdays, 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. till 7 p.m, and also at the weekend, 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. And items currently being accepted are those crucial items such as sleeping bags, thermal warm clothing, baby food, nappies, painkillers, sanitary products, toiletries, first aid kits, etc., and medical supplies. An appeal is also raising money to pay for transport of those supplies from Newcastle under Lyne to Ukraine. And donations can be made by the Just Giving website by searching We Stand With Ukraine, and it's currently at about £2,500 has been raised in the last week or so for that. Newcastle Borough Council was pleased, and I as leader was pleased to play our part in the letter that Alan White, our leader, read out to Boris Johnson and Priti Patel about our collective readiness and ability to help those fleeing Ukraine, with a record we have recently of taking in Afghan evacuees as well. And it was heartening to see on the 14th of March that the government announced the Homes for Ukraine scheme, and also that local authorities will get support packages associated with that, so we can make sure that those people that come here are looked after and get the education if they're of educational age. And we've in Newcastle are publicising that on our social media and in the community, so that people are aware that they can apply to house a Ukrainian family. But as I say, I associate myself with all the comments that have been made. Utterly terrible, what we see every night on the news. And I think we can be proud of the steps we're taking in Newcastle and Kidsgrove, and I think we can from what I'm hearing across the county. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Saeed Hussain, please.
Thank you, Chairman. The victims and their families of Russia's unjustified war and continued genocide may count my sympathies. Mr. Chairman, in my district, around 400 Ukrainian people are residing, and we know what sort of trauma, uncertainty, and worries they are going through. As a country, we have a proud history of supporting those who are the victims of war, tyranny, and political persecution. Mr. Chairman, all wars are evil, and victims of every war deserve our support. This war is not just Russia against Ukraine, it's a war against Putin, against the whole humanity. Mr. Chairman, it is quite disturbing to observe on the televisions when we see small children are waving their hands through the train window, and there is no guarantee they will see their parents ever again. The best part of the war is the end of it. Mr. Chairman, I'm so proud and I commend the local charities in my hometown who are collecting the humanitarian aids, including painkillers and pot noodles, and planning to transport this one to the Polish border to help our fellow citizens in Ukraine. Despite his able efforts, Hitler tried to subjugate the whole world, but he failed. I'm sure it should be the same story with the Putin as well. He will be relegated to the trash of history, trash of the history. The same may be true in Putin war, and we can see the resistance in the Ukraine. It took 10 years for Afghans to get rid of 6,000 Russian soldiers. And we load the Ukrainian resistance, and due to our own military effort for their training and supplies, within 2 weeks, they have get rid of 6,500 Russians. Mr. Chairman, we abhor these heinous aggressions, and history will judge his crime against humanity. We hate this war crime and wait for the proper justice for those Ukrainian people. And our thoughts and our sympathy with Ukrainians. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm grateful for your indulgence, as always.
Thank you. Councillor Victoria Wilson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I won't repeat what's already been said, but it's clear that all our hearts really do go out to those in desperate need in the Ukraine. We have a strong track record in Staffordshire of helping those in need who have been persecuted and who have come to this county for safe haven. In recent months and years, we've welcomed those fleeing Afghanistan and Syria. And the situation with Ukrainians is no different. We stand ready to offer Ukrainian refugees a warm welcome to our county should our help inevitably be needed. In terms of volunteers, we have those all over the county, and we can already see them galvanising and getting themselves ready. And so many of us want to help, either by offering money, by offering essential items, and more importantly, a safe place to stay where they can feel safe in their families, we can look after them. And then we need to be able to allow them to go back to their countries eventually and pick up the pieces and build their lives back up again after the devastation that they'll find there. In South Staffordshire, our housing association is working with us to place 34 families in accommodation. We're providing furniture, essentials, food, and basically a holistic wraparound offer for these people for when they arrive. We're very, very proud and moved by all the initiatives that are being offered around South Staffs and the county to help our neighbours. We always step up in this county, and that's something I'm really, really proud of. We obviously are not happy with what's happening with this war that's driven by Putin. And let's not forget that it's not the Russians, it's Putin. But we really care about those people in need, and we're delighted to be able to welcome them into this county. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Loughborough Rudd, please.
I never thought in my lifetime that I would see conflict in Europe again. I was born in a generation of Francis Fukuyama, who once said that it was the end of history. But here we are. We're in a period of Russian aggression upon Ukraine that is both disgraceful and, frankly, without record. And I'd like to praise the leaders of Staffordshire councils for your response. And I hope that in the next few days that we start talking less about numbers and more about provisions. These are people who are suffering immeasurably. Councillor Smith will remember very well what it was like in the Second World War. I will not. It is my fear, and of my generation, that this will not be the end, that Putin will keep marching into Europe, and nations like China will look upon this. So it is important that the West keeps an eye on this, and that we prepare this, because democracy is important. Ukraine woke up a democracy when one day, and the next day their president has to take guns into the battle. We must always remember how much democracy was fought for. Long before I existed and long after I depart this world, there will be democracy in this world. It's the most important thing possible. And we must do everything we can to ensure that that is the case throughout Europe. Because the example that we set with Ukrainians, and we in Staffordshire are very well known for that, we've set kindness with the Afghanistan refugees. We need to take as many as possible, regardless of and we need to be ready to support them. And whether that's our mental health provisions, whether it's our capacity to care, or whether it's our capacity to language, because of course many of them will not be able to speak English. And I hope, and I personally, that we push the government all the way in making sure that we take as many as we can, because there is no price when it comes to compassion.
Thank you. Councillor Mike Sutherland, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. We all welcome the leader's introduction, and every speaker has spoke with personal passion. And if I may just say, it tugs your heartstrings when you hear personal experience that David Smith went through. Not trying to lighten this, but I am humbled by the level of response from all our local community groups. I'll particularly mention Cannock Chase. In responding to the call for help and assistance now and in the future. Responding to this terrible situation and plight that the Ukrainian people are in right now. They need help now, and we're giving help. If I may, 2 minutes, give you an example of what we're doing in our local, my local division in Rugeley. Since last week, donations, and we've heard examples of, it's a finite list of first aid kits, lights, torches, toiletries, nappies, baby food, etc., sleeping bags, air beds, and what have you. They're being taken into identified collecting points across the whole of Rugeley. I'm talking about schools, village halls, church halls, community centres, and even retail outlets have joined this week. Today, all those donations are being collected and taken into a central distribution hub. Forgive me, Leader, and forgive me, Chief Exec, it's like a military operation. Tomorrow, at this central hub, teams of volunteers are coming into the centre to assemble individual boxes. We anticipate it will take till Sunday to have that job done, and they'll be loaded onto vehicles to depart for Ukraine. Chairman, the level of energy I and all my Cannock Chase council colleagues have witnessed locally has been outstanding, and I'm sure members in this chamber today will be saying the same thing. It is truly inspiring, as well as humbling. We have great communities in Staffordshire. Yet again, we have risen to the challenge here in Staffordshire when a help is called upon. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Jeremy Oates, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the illustration we've heard this morning of the fear and terror that's happening in the Ukraine has been well explained. And I don't think I can really add to that. However, what I will say is, on a local basis, in Staffordshire and in Tamworth, only a couple of years ago, we looked at our communities and asked them to step up and help us through a pandemic. This is far more scary than that was. If you remember the first lockdown, when we all complained we couldn't get out of our houses, at least we could sit in our back garden and enjoy the sun. The people in Ukraine are running for their lives. We shouldn't forget that. Our communities in Staffordshire and Tamworth have once again stepped up. We haven't had to ask them again. They've stepped up and they've got stuck in. The comments we just heard about Cannock and the drop points and the donation points, we're seeing exactly the same in Tamworth. People are desperate to get involved and help out. To date, £52,000 worth of items have been donated. That includes 3,000 colouring books and colouring pens to entertain the people, the young people who are seeking refuge. It includes sanitary items, baby wipes, and batteries. There's been a huge request for batteries. Now, this builds on the communities in Tamworth and communities in Staffordshire and our previous relations. In a few hours' time, Borough Councillor Danny Cook and Councillor Dan Maycock are actually climbing into a van and driving to the Ukraine border. They'll leave tomorrow morning. They're hoping to be back by Monday. And they have a van load of aid that they are desperate to get over there now. And the reason I mentioned about former relations, we have a twin town in Germany, in Tamworth is twinned with Bad Lasfer. We're using that as a stop-off point. So they're driving to our twin town, stopping overnight, driving to the Ukraine border, and on the way back, stopping at our twin town again. This is about those relationships we've built over the years and about our communities building those relationships and stepping up when we need to and helping other people. I'm proud to be one of the signatures on the letter that Alan read out earlier. It's exactly the right thing to do. What we need to be doing is whatever we can in our local communities, but also us as elected members, not just talking in this chamber, but actually pressing those who have the power and control to do the right thing and do it quickly and efficiently, so that when our communities step up and offer refuge, whether it be a place or whether they offer support in terms of donations and everything, that we can actually deliver on that without any blockers in the way. These people need our help now. Not only do they need our help now, and I think it's been illustrated by some of the other speeches, they need our help in the future. This is not going to be a quick resolution. Regardless of what Putin decides to do or doesn't decide to do today, tomorrow, or whatever, it's about how we look after these people afterwards. There's a whole country that needs rebuilding, and there's millions of people who will be displaced and will need a home, whether that's back in the Ukraine, whether that's here. They need a home. They need a long-term stability. It's a really scary issue we're in. It's really great that the communities have stepped up. It's great that we're here now fighting the fight in terms of pushing our senior politicians to make the right decisions and open those bureaucratic loopholes and open those opportunities for us to stand up and do what we want to do, and that is help the people of the Ukraine, of the UK, and anywhere else in Europe or the rest of the world where we need to step up and help them. It's almost our duty. We've done it before, we'll do it again, and like I said, if we thought the pandemic affected us badly, imagine what it's like running for your life in the Ukraine right now.
Councillor Oates, thank you. Can you please pass the regards of this chamber to Danny? Thank him for what he's doing and wish him a safe journey out and back. Councillor Philip Atkins, please.
A week's a long time in politics. A month is a lifetime. Who'd have thought when we sat in here on February the 10th that we'd be sitting 5 weeks later, 4 weeks later, with what's going on in Ukraine. We were discussing working with nature, and some want to rewild the countryside. I'm really moved by what people are doing in my part of the world, I know that there's people, as Jeremy's just been talking about, driving vans over to the Ukraine. They were collecting goods in Burton, but they're not coming back. They're staying to fight in their country. There's a queue around Bramshall Village Hall car park where the villagers had all gone into an orderly queue to go and donate goods in the village hall, which are packaged and then sent off to Ukraine. CTR at Marchington has been on national news where they collect things that are given to the waste disposal site in many instances, but they're packaging it up and making sure that it goes to Ukraine while they're worried about their relatives. There's many things that we've got to think about that we can do as county councillors, and one is ensure that any barriers or hurdles or obstacles that are put in the way of people who are trying to find shelter are removed. There is a subtle difference between asylum seekers, economic refugees and evacuees. These people are trying to save, well, the men are fighting. It's the families that they're trying to make sure are safe. So my mind goes to short, medium and long term, and as Jeremy said, there is going to be a rebuilding in a long time distant. It's going to be a long time before we get to that stage. But in the short term, I'm pleased to see that people are standing up, looking at ways of housing people, both as individuals and as companies. But this isn't just Ukraine. This isn't just Europe. This isn't just us. This is the world. The last 18,000-ton shipment of wheat went into Beirut about 4 days ago. Bread is going to be on ration in Egypt. Tunisia has no foreign exchange to pay for the higher prices of wheat. In Morocco, they're stocking up on flour for Ramadan. The Ukraine bread basket ships out some 30 to 45 million tons of wheat a year. It's the third largest wheat growing area in the world. That has stopped overnight. There is only Odessa as a port that remains. Nobody will go there. As Mark Winnington said, they've got problems trying to sow the crops. They've got mines in the fields. If they go out, they get shot at by rockets. Imagine, never mind the increased price of fertiliser, getting your seed, working the field. But if one of those low-flying aeroplanes that came over me, or comes over me and Keith Flunder, that are practising at the moment, the RAF, they're coming over. I can't imagine what it would feel like if you're worried about whether they're going to shoot at you. So in the medium term, we've got other problems that we have to think about as county councillors, because this is going to cost all of us in the cost of living, as well as providing homes, and also in the longer term of trying to help Ukraine rebuild itself for the future that it has. I will just mention one thing. We have got a relationship with Russia, and Putin and his invasion is evil. And I feel sorry for the Russians who are under his thumb. I daren't email them because they'd have a visit at 2 o'clock in the morning. There are plenty of Russians in this country who've made it their home. Please don't pick on them either. This is, as I said, a week's a short time, a long time in politics, but there's a lot more to do, and there's a lot that we can do as county councillors to ensure any child that comes to this country from the Ukraine is helped to get over all the things that they've seen and can have a place in a school and resume their education. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mark DeVille, please.
Chairman, thank you. Really powerful comments, Chairman. Real passion right across this chamber today, and real unity. And as the leader said earlier, we are indeed living in terrible and dreadful times. Mrs. Hood, you're right. When you see pictures of children who didn't choose to get into this conflict, of children, of women moving their children and their pet dogs and pet cats out of danger. Babies this morning, newborn babies taken off the mothers at birth. There were all dreadful pictures this morning of probably 20 newborn babies moved into a refuge. It really does make you want to cry when you see these pictures, and how we feel seeing these pictures. We can't even start to think how they feel, how they are experiencing these atrocities and this terror. Mr. Smith was so eloquent, wasn't he? Thank you, Mr. Smith, for painting that picture of sheer terror, the terror of being a child involved in war. I think that was really powerful. So, as Mr. Atkins said, we can do a lot. We can step up, and we will step up. And, of course, within the Staffordshire Moorlands, the other 7 districts of Staffordshire, we will step up. And we stand steadfastly behind the people of the Ukraine. We're ready to do everything and anything that we can do to help these people. We're ready to step up. Mrs. Atkins was saying there's all sorts of coordination needed. There is. There'll be questions about resource and how we do this. There are all sorts of questions. But we'll do it, Chairman. We'll make it happen. We stepped up to the plate before. We'll absolutely step up to the plate now. And we'll play a massive part in helping these people. We'll play a massive part in Staffordshire. Mr. Oakes, you're probably right. I don't think there is. I can't see a quick resolution to this. However, I join Mr. Hussein in praying for a quick resolution and an end to these atrocities. And I'll end, Mr. Chairman, by just thanking everyone for their contributions today. And I'll end by saying that good will absolutely always prevail over evil, Chairman.
Thank you. The Council Leader, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to those of you who've contributed to this. It's clear that across the county there is a huge amount of effort being put into preparing the welcome for Ukrainian refugees. Out of respect for the people of Ukraine, let's make sure that we don't refer to Ukraine as the Ukraine. That's what the Soviets wanted to call it, and Ukrainian people prefer to be known as Ukrainians, not the Ukraine. Councillor Charlotte Atkins' comments about the costs of receiving refugees from Ukraine, we will be allocated around £10,500 per refugee to help cover some of the costs of the support that they will need. The safeguarding services at Staffordshire County Council are currently starting to plan for the reception of Ukrainian refugees, and plans should be in place next week, and I would hope the Relevant Overview and Scrutiny Committee and indeed Councillor Wilson will make sure that those plans are operational very, very quickly. There are people around this room who've got personal experience of privations during war. Councillor Smith gave an example himself. My grandparents had a Nazi bomb land right in their restaurant that they owned, and my grandmother was left just with the clothes that she stood up in and 2 small children. That was all she had. You can rebuild from that, but it does take a very long time. I'd like to give the Chamber reassurance that the Local Resilience Forum is starting to contemplate the consequences of escalation. Councillor Philip Atkins and Councillor Winnington raised the requirement for food and farms to support our efforts here in the United Kingdom. We hope and pray that the diplomatic efforts that are currently going on across the world limit the possibility of escalation. The consequences of escalation are too awful to contemplate. Far too awful to contemplate. My son is currently in Norway doing Arctic warfare training to allow him to prepare to defend the northern flank of NATO should the Russians come via the north. And myself and the Chief Executive, as most people in this chamber know, are currently on the reserve list, which would be quite surreal, really. We'd have to go, and I'd have to call him Sir. So, quite right. Fellow councillors, thank you for your comments. We will put our shoulder to this, and we will ensure that Staffordshire and its communities continue to offer warm reception to those people who need it in times of adversity. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Leader. Could I now ask, please, all in the chamber to stand for a few moments of personal reflection from what we've heard. We'll now continue with the Leader's statement. Item 1, COVID-19. Councillor Mrs Atkins.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to express my gratitude to Dr. Richard Harling for so effectively leading our public health team. He was rightly honoured in the Queen's Honours, and I think it recognised the huge contribution that he made, and we're very, very lucky to have him leading the team. Public health does play a vital role within Staffordshire and within the country. My fear is that I don't think that it's really recognised rightly by the government what it does, because clearly by investing in public health, we're ensuring that those bulging NHS waiting lists don't get any larger. And I fear that, you know, because it's sort of largely invisible to lots of people, that it doesn't get the recognition that it deserves. We've seen the public health grant reduced by a quarter since 2015, when in fact it should be boosted, it should be doubled. And I hope that in the future we will see that public health grant increasing, because that is the way forward, preventative care rather than creating an illness service, which the NHS has become. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Johnny McMahon.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to public health, we will do all we can with the money that we've been given, and in particular, we will make it reflect what's in the current JSNA, which is an update that has the COVID burden written within it. Thank you for your comments, Councillor Atkins. It's 2 years to the month since we saw the first COVID case in Staffordshire, and 2 years to the month when sadly we saw the first death. As of Tuesday morning of this week, we had a community spread of 467 cases per 100,000. You will all know that historically that's quite a high number. Yet despite that, hospitalizations are stable, and the ONS figures for all-cause mortality are below, for this time of year, are below the 5-year average. Why is that? We all know that non-pharmaceutical interventions, like social distancing, masks, and lockdowns, and so on, delay this virus. They don't deal with it. It's the technology and the rollout of the vaccine that's been a game changer and made a huge difference to us in respect of dealing with this. And I'm glad to be able to tell you that Staffordshire remains in the top quartile in terms of vaccination coverage in the West Midlands, and that on Monday they will start to, the spring booster for those over 75 will start on Monday, and as of the 4th of April, all those from age 5 to 11 will be offered a vaccine. And it's because of that that the government has been able to publish its Living with COVID plan in February 21st. This means that we can now get back to normal. It also means that some of the powers that were conferred upon us, the vast majority of them, in 2020, have been withdrawn. However, the Council remains ready to deal with any outbreaks that occur, particularly in high-risk situations, support the NHS with the vaccine, and give advice wherever we can to anybody who asks. Whilst always being mindful of those who have lost loved ones and those who remain understandably fearful of the virus, and those whose health, well-being and livelihoods have suffered due to the restrictions we have all had to bear, we have much to be grateful for, and we owe our thanks to many. The scientists who've worked around the clock to produce this technology, Kate Bingham and the UK Government Vaccine Task Force in order to instigate the rollout, and in Staffordshire, the residents who've all, by and large, done the right thing and supported each other, schools, businesses, the voluntary sector, NHS and council staff, and as I was reminded yesterday, the taxpayer. We have all pulled together. Together, we have brought this virus to heel. We cannot be sure of what the future will look like, but should the numbers increase dramatically or a pernicious variant comes our way, I am assured that the COVID machinery of the County Council can be stood up in very short order. We are now learning to live with COVID. Thank you, Chair.
Lead the Council, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to Councillor Charlotte Atkins for your comments about public health. They're very welcome, and I indeed also pay tribute to Dr. Richard Harding for his services during the course of the pandemic. You're right to raise the issue of public health in general, though, and I think that we do need to reflect on the efforts we're making to create healthy lives. Those people who have healthy lives have a better chance of beating off COVID. And so I would encourage those people who perhaps during the pandemic might have started drinking a little too much rather than just a glass of wine, a bottle of wine, or perhaps patronising Tamworth hostelries in order to support the community of pub goers, as Councillor Oates, I know he does. Perhaps drinking a little bit too much, perhaps eating a little bit too much during the course of the pandemic. Councillor Dr. McMahon refers to those as COVID kilos, I think is what he talks about. Time to get that off and start to refocus on our healthy lives. There's other components that COVID has affected, and in particular, mental health services and mental health conditions of people across the world. I see an increase in anxiety and depression, and perhaps that's what's leading to a little bit more drinking. We do need to focus on getting back to normal, meeting up with people, getting our communities up and running, and so that we can start to address those mental health challenges, Mr. Chairman, that we are facing as a consequence of the 2 years we've had of COVID. But we move on, and thank you to Councillor McMahon for your comments.
Are you asking me to stop bringing biscuits in for full council then? Thank you, Leader. Item 2, Staffordshire means back to business, an oral update. Councillor Syed Hussain, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I welcome the decreasing rate of universal credit claimants, which is a very good news story, Mr. Chairman. And there is no doubt that business generates VAT, income tax, and job security, which are the lifeblood for all good cause we do, including NHS, educations, and welfares, and so on. Mr. Chairman, I am a bit worried to see that these figures of apologies for it, the 88% increase, and which is a net 11% increase in the administration, in the insolvency, in corporate insolvency. And Mr. Chairman, we know that in the corporate insolvency, there is two factors there. One is administrations and one is the liquidations. When it goes to the liquidations, there is no choice but winding up the companies. But if this is in the administration, there is a hope to save those companies. To save those companies, why do we need to save this? Saving a company means saving a job. A job is like saving a family as well. So I would welcome any figures or any directions from the respected cabinet members that how many companies our county are facing administrations and as a business-friendly county, and while we always nurture the entrepreneurial culture, is there any direct support we can offer to those struggling companies who are crippling and who knows with the right acumen and with the right support, we might still save them? Secondly, Mr. Chairman, and which is also, I would like to commend this effort and some announcement about the affordable home. We know as a county council, we don't have any direct involvement with the housing associations, although even in district council, there is very few influence nowadays and very few direct involvements. There's the housing associations that do these things. However, we must not forget all those millennials who were born after 2000, and it will be incredibly hard for them to step on the property ladder. And I'm really concerned how we can ensure a roof over their head as well. Mr. Chairman, this is really a pressing issue for us because we will be defeating them, and our defeat will start if we relinquish our ability to help them. Mr. Chairman, also, the same token, I must need to share my concerns in my home district as well. There are over 3,000 families are still waiting in the waiting list of the housings. So I would urge the leader of the councils, when he met with the other borough and district council in his leadership forums, he will press this issue as well at the same token. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Councillor Mike Sutherland, please.
Thank you, Chair. I, along with others, do welcome this report, and I'm delighted with the numbers going the right way, so to speak. The one point I would like to just highlight, because it's so significant and so important, and that's the paragraph that says, working closely with our districts and boroughs, we have brought together our collective regeneration priorities as a county under one document. That's fantastic. And I can talk on behalf of Cannock Chase Council that are indebted to this because it helps us. We have readily advice and support, which is vital for us as a district. And I'm sure fellow colleagues elsewhere in districts and boroughs will endorse what I've just said there. Regeneration is the biggest driver for our sustainability. And so, as I say, I welcome the report, and I'm particularly delighted that we're all joined up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Charlotte Atkins, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On that same paragraph, I just want to ask about MIPIN. This 4-day trip to Cannes, is it entirely funded by business contributions, or does the County Council make a financial contribution to the cost of the trip? And what tangible results have resulted from previous international MIPIN visits? Was a cost-benefit analysis done? And what expectations does the County Council have for this visit to Cannes? It's good to see that things are getting back to normal, but I think we must ensure that if we're investing money in this, or in fact if business is investing money in it, we do need to get value for money. And what assessment will be made after this visit to ensure that this is the right path for the County Council? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Philip Hudson, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I welcome the news at Uttoxeter that the Staffordshire Borough Council are going to commence a compulsory purchase order on the Maltings precinct. It's been long overdue, and I really welcome that we're going to start now to regenerate that part of the town, get some new investment in there, and I know that we look forward to working with the County Council over the coming years. It's going to take about 18 months, I think, to get that order in place if it's need to. Hopefully, the people that actually own the Maltings might do something about it before that action is taken. But it's very positive news for Uttoxeter and the regeneration of our town centre, and I'm really happy that that has been announced in the last couple of weeks. I'd also like to go on to say that on Monday, the East Staffordshire Borough Council will be voting on the town deal once again. I am very sorry that it didn't go through at the last meeting, but that's democracy for you. We have a revamped idea now, which I'm sure will be acceptable by most of the councillors now in East Staffordshire. I look forward to that vote on Monday, and I look forward to £23 million of investment being invested in Burton Town Centre for the good of the people of Burton and East Staffordshire. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Whittington, please.
Yeah, just I feel a certain responsibility about the MIPIN thing in terms of what we've done in the past, and just one or two examples of some of the projects going forwards that we discussed at MIPIN. So we've got the Eastgate project in Stafford. We've got Stafford Gateway again. That was discussed in great depth when I was involved. The I-54, and in particular the Jaguar Land Rover plant. Jaguar Land Rover storage at Stone as another example. Pets Are Us was the discussions were started at MIPIN about that on the Stone Road, and also just the thing with MIPIN, and I obviously haven't been this year, and I don't think any cabinet members have been this year, but the thing about MIPIN is it does give you that forum, and all you go there to talk about is business and development. And unless you go yourself, you can't sort of get your head around that. It's not a jolly. You start at 8 o'clock in the morning, you finish at 10 o'clock at night. 4 days of hard work. You finished? Thank you. No. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think with the outbreak of semi-COVID in the far corner, we'll leave it at that one. And
thank you, Councillor Whittington. Councillor Philip White, please.
The wrong one. Yeah, I'll go on that one. Okay, thank you very much, Chairman. So I know you're keen for councillors to try and make their comments pertinent to the point today and avoid repetition. We have a lot of discussion here about all of the great work that our businesses are doing in Staffordshire, the success of the Staffordshire economy, and the work that we do in this council with our partners to support those businesses. So I won't say any more about that than that. Regarding the specific points that have been raised this morning, the point on insolvencies is a point that I asked the Leader of the Council to include in his statement, both here and at the Cabinet meeting prior to yesterday's. And that's because all of those good news stories, I think, are only credible if we're also transparent about the issues that our economy faces. And company insolvencies is something which has been put effectively in the deep freeze over the last 2 years by the COVID support that businesses have been offered, which has meant that a lot of businesses that wouldn't naturally continue, which is the normal course of the business cycle, have been able to continue. The cessation of the majority of economic support for businesses as we return to normal through COVID has meant that we've seen those businesses that were not viable going into insolvency. The numbers that are reported are national. The Insolvency Service doesn't do those on a local authority by local authority area. But if we assume we've got about 1% of the population, the national figure for January was about 1,560 company insolvencies. So that would be 15 to 20 in Staffordshire. There are some newer figures which have come out since the Leader's statement was published, and they have the current insolvency rate running at about 2% above where we were 2 years ago, pre to the pandemic. So that is back to trend. So that is transparency, and it's important that we have that when we're discussing our economy. It's also important that we're mindful here and that we're talking to our businesses and talking to others who can influence economic policy about the other challenges that our businesses face at the moment. So input costs, particularly energy costs, which are a challenge for us all, but including businesses, the cost of materials, and those range from materials that manufacturers use through fertilizers, through other things that are expensive and difficult to come by now, and also shortages in the labour market because we have such low unemployment. That does create challenges. It's important that we're transparent about these things, that we are discussing them with businesses, and that we are discussing them with those that can help influence in a positive way those outcomes for businesses, and that we do our part where we can, as we have done over the last 2 years during COVID with the many schemes we've delivered here and in partnership with others. On the housing matter, that is a matter for the district and borough council, so I'm sure you can speak to the new leader of East Staffordshire Borough Council about that. Regarding one or two of the other very positive things that are in the statement, Councillor Sutherland mentioned our new prospectus, our investment prospectus, which was launched at the MIPIM Property Forum earlier this week, A Place to Prosper, which draws together the brilliant investment offer we have here in Staffordshire. Now, we've been going to MIPIM for a number of years, and to Councillor Atkins' point, I'll happily write to her about that and provide her with some detail. But our representation there this year is a team of our senior officers. That's what the leader and I felt was right. It is all work for them, and we are comfortable that that is a place where we do want to be showcasing what Staffordshire has to offer. On a slightly more gritty level, we're off up to Leeds for the Real Estate Investment Forum in a few weeks' time, where I'm speaking, and that is the UK's largest real estate forum, and I'll be going along to that, flying the flag for Staffordshire very proudly. The final thing I will draw colleagues' attention to, and I emailed everybody about this yesterday, is the consultation on our county-wide economic strategy, which launched yesterday. That is our next step. We had our Back to Business economic strategy, which we launched at the start of the pandemic. We now want to look forwards. You all have the details of that in your inbox. I'd encourage you all to look at that and comment. That will be matched in about a month's time by a rural economic strategy that speaks specifically to the challenges and opportunities for our rural areas, and I would encourage the same for that. Thank you, colleagues, and thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Item 3, business case for home care developments. And 22. Okay, no speakers. Item 5, potential joint coroner service business case. Councillor Colin Greatrix, please.
Thank you, Chairman. We gave this, as members of corporate review will know, we gave this some overview rather than scrutiny. It was good to see the business case before it was put into place. And I think we gave it a good look, and our comments were very positive in terms of the benefits that are described in this report, this précis, i.e. having a single standard service across Stoke and Staffordshire, and the efficiencies that are described, referring to the cases being dealt with in a more timely manner, more efficiency of response. However, what we did observe was that there was a comment about the finances, that all of this restructure involved no additional cost, which wasn't a great stretch when you bear in mind that there's a reduction in the respect of one coroner and one site. And so therefore I wonder if the Cabinet Member, Councillor Wilson, has any information now on the potential for any savings that might be ensuing from the restructure.
Thank you. Councillor Saeed Hussain, please.
Thank you, Chair. In the Jewish and Muslim communities, this is a long-standing and very emotional subject, Mr. Chairman. And MRIs are always a preferred options to these communities. Can I request the Cabinet Member to look into this emotive measures for those communities as well, to rectify again to his business case? Is there any chance if you can include their wishes, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson, please.
I believe, do you want me to go through again? No, you got it. She got it.
Councillor Mrs Wilson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I will need some clarification on that, so if you wouldn't mind putting that in writing to me so I can investigate for you, I'd be happy to come back to you on that. This is really actually quite a good news story for Staffordshire. The decision has been through scrutiny and through Cabinet. We've listened to concerns in scrutiny and we've adapted the plans to ensure that we get the best for families who have often, and especially more recently, Chairman, been through an extremely difficult and stressful time when saying their last goodbye to their loved ones. The merger will improve services for everybody, for all bereaved families, making sure that the service is sustainable and fit for the future. There was also the potential to use other sites, as mentioned in the paper. We're going to be offering a seamless transition so that people in this county will be laying their family members to rest without even knowing of the process that goes on behind the scenes. This is really good news, and it's good also that as a county council, we've been working with coroners all these years and working in a really successful way. And as with many things on this council, people don't even know that we do this. And that really just goes to show just how well we're doing it. We don't get any complaints, and that's really testament to such a well-run part of the county council. I expect going forward that we'll continue to offer this exceptional service to the people of Staffordshire. Just answering the question from Councillor Greatrix, I don't have the detail here in front of me, but I would be happy to provide that in writing later on. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 6, major improvements to A50, A500 corridor. Councillor Philip Atkins.
Thank you, Chairman. This is the document. It's been a long time coming, but this is quite vital for this county and the levelling up agenda. The background to it is that an assumption that most north-south is taken care of through the M6, M1, West Coast Main Line, etc. And that what really mattered was east-west, which is something that the country's never really bothered about if you look at any map that we have. And with HS2 coming along, whatever you may think about HS2, and this council's against it, we have to live with it. And one of the key bits is that, as it appears now, is the two stations will end at Towton and Crewe. That will be the end of the line. And with some opportunities through Stafford and Stoke with the Javelin trains. We've also got the largest freight airport just over in Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire, East Midlands Airport. We've got Manchester Airport. We've got the deep sea port at Liverpool and the deep sea port at Immingham. And this route across the country is a key route, and it will cost a lot of money. And we all want individual bits of this project done first. And this document is the first time that we've ever put into one place what the benefits are for the whole of the Midlands Engine region and Midlands Connect. I'm wearing the badge. It has in the report the opportunities to level up. New buzzword, it was the North Midlands Manufacturing Corridor, now it's levelling up Stoke-on-Trent, Staffordshire, Derby and Derbyshire, but I'd say that there's even more to it than that. Because there's also the delays in traffic. I witness it on a daily basis at Utoxeter. 37 minutes you're sitting idling away in your lorry or car. We have a campaign to persuade people to switch the cars off outside schools. They don't switch them off on the A50. They just sit there in the queue, wherever it may be, either getting onto the M1, the M6, at Utoxeter, Blythe Bridge, there's lots of them, or the roundabout at Sudbury, where the lorries regularly fall over. So there's an awful lot to be said in this document, and I really do welcome it, but this is just the start. The Cabinet member and the leader and all the other councils along it will have to keep pushing so that the funding is found in the Road Investment Strategy 3, 4 and 5, which last up to, from today up till 2040, and make sure that individual projects that are in this document get into those RIS 3, 4 and 5 so that it's done. I probably won't be around when this project is completed, but at least I'll know that this is a really good step in making sure that this county continues to export goods and generate wealth for this country. Because along this corridor is not just little bit companies. They range from Bentley to Rolls-Royce, making nuclear reactors, from the East Midlands Airport to Manchester Airport. They've got JCB, Bombardier, Toyota, and a whole host of other industries that were really key. Now, I know that we'll probably want the A5 done, the A38, and lots of other little bits and bobs done as well. But this is a major infrastructure project which has finally been put together in one place. And who knows, the experience from this will help sort out the A38 and the A5 and all those other roads that we have a good moan about. But it's a really welcome document, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Keith Lunder, please.
Thank you, Chair. I am also extremely happy to see this document finally come forward. There's been rumours afoot for many a year about what's going to be happening along that corridor, and I'm absolutely fantastic to see that this investment, this major investment, is now going to go ahead. Ross isn't here today, so I thought I'd better put my oar into the whole process because he represents the section of road that goes along between Blythe Bridge and into Uttoxeter, and we've just heard from Philip about from that side forward. There's a lot of issues that will come involved with this, and I do think that it's up to those members and some of us here to realise that perhaps the consultation that has been going ahead with HS2 and also with a large project in my own division with Western Power Distribution, that perhaps consultation to the residents and to the lower tier councils, the town councils and the parish councils, hasn't been preferably that good in previous experience of this council. I would therefore implore that this is taken on board and that we take on as soon as we can some consultation involved in the process to make sure that we bring along the residents and the businesses and everything else, which we've gone through a very long list of businesses already. I think we missed out Alton Towers within the Moorlands, but I just implore whoever's in charge of this, and I think it might be Philip and others and David Williams himself, who's not here today, but we could please make sure that the local people and ourselves as members do get involved in this at a very early stage, and that we can get the best out of this for the residents and for the businesses and for future jobs within the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Philip Hudson, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The A50's come a long way since I was a police officer sitting in my patrol car on the A50 checking vehicles when we used to stop and check vehicles. It's a different ball game now. I very much welcome this, and I want you to do in first, please. I use the A50 every day going to Derbyshire. You know, I get stuck in the tailbacks. It's horrific, and it needs sorting out. Mr. Flunder's stole a little bit of what I wanted to say, is that with the abandoned Plan B that we had, there was a lot of people who weren't happy with the plans that were going to happen. So can we please have some, let the local councillors from county, borough and parish councils get involved in the plans for the new, whatever we're going to do on the A50 there, from an early stage, because already residents are starting to fear that the back garden is going to be compulsory purchased. You know, what are we going to do with the McDonald's roundabout? What are we going to do with all the businesses there? So can we please get involved from early stage? There's a lot of us got a lot of different backgrounds and experiences that we can help with the planning of this fantastic project. And, you know, I hope I will be alive when it's finished. But thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Philip White, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, I said earlier that I wouldn't do any repetition if I avoided, and Councillor Atkins did a brilliant elevator pitch, although I think you'd have had to go up quite a tall building to get all of the detail in there. This is a nationally significant project, and the transport connectivity element of it that is illustrated in the report that Councillor Atkins had, and to Councillor Flunder and to Councillor Hudson, that report is there with the proposed interventions, so people can find out immediately what is proposed rather than worrying about whether it will affect their area or not. But the transport connectivity goes with the economic development, with the employment. There are 12,000 jobs that are estimated to be created by this, skilled jobs. There is the innovation. This is an innovation corridor. Those global manufacturers that sit along that corridor are major manufacturers and major innovators, both in engineering but also particularly in energy, and particularly in hydrogen, which is one of the things that we can do along that corridor to contribute to global Britain and to exporting, because this will also be an exporting corridor. It is massive. It is fundamentally important to us. These things take time, as Councillor Atkins has said, but the sooner you start to see the benefits. And we are pushing very hard on this. It is a large coalition of local authorities, but also particularly importantly of businesses. And the key thing that we're working on now is getting those businesses to get to grips with this, to understand what the real benefits are from them if this happens, and to advocate for it. And the final thing that I'll say is, to that point again about time, this is a marathon, it's not a sprint, it's a huge project, but if anyone who's ever been to a marathon will see marathon runners, the really good ones, they run blooming fast. So we are going to be running blooming fast with this and pushing it really hard. And I would ask all of you, if you're speaking to your MPs or speaking to any leaders in business, please do make this one of the first things you talk to them about. It is massively important for our part of the world.
Thank you. Lead for Council, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ultimately, it's not Midlands Engine that's going to be delivering this project. It's going to be the local authorities along the corridor. One of my first acts as leader of council was to convene a meeting of all the leaders along the corridor, including the leader of Moorlands, the leader of East Staffs, the leader of Stoke, Nottingham City, and the others. We came together at that point to reaffirm our commitment to this project, to demand of Midlands Engine that we wanted to see this come to fruition, because for Staffordshire, unlocking the A50-A500 corridor doesn't just unlock the north of the county, it provides us with potential to unlock the south of the county along the A38 and demand improvements there too, because for those people living in the south of the county, you know that the stories that have been described by Councillor Flunder just a moment ago got the same problems on the A38 as well. So this is a project which starts to unlock a multitude of opportunities for this county. We continue to push hard and demand progress as local authority leaders along that corridor, and working with the Midlands Engine and our sponsor MPs to make progress as quickly as we possibly can, as Councillor White alluded to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Just a moment, our screens have gone off, so can we just try and sort the screens out before we move to the next item? I think now might be the time we have a 5-minute break, or say a 10-minute break, a comfort break, and we'll return at 22, please.
you wouldn't do it.
Ladies and gents, can you take your seats, please, so we can move on? We've found the offender and our work machines are now working properly. Okay, welcome back. We'll now continue with item 8, the last item on the leader's statement, Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Come to Simon Tagg, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we've had a lot of bleak conversations and debates. This is more, a bit of shine, a bit of light as we go towards the June bank holidays and the Jubilee, Platinum Jubilee of Her Majesty the Queen. I just wanted to say a couple of things about what's happening on my patch up in Newcastle. We're planning a Jubilee market in our historic market. We're looking at a Jubilee parade through the town centre on one of the bank holidays. And we're also lighting a beacon at Apedale as part of the national beacon lighting for the Jubilee. And we're also welcoming the Commonwealth Games baton into the borough, which will start at Keele, go through to the town centre and up into Kidsgrove area. And of course, this is the Platinum Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, isn't it, in Jubilee year? So a lot going on locally. I think county-wide, we've got the obviously the tree planting as part of the Queen's Green Canopy. 70 schools across the county involved in that planting trees. And also announced this week, Mr. Chairman, was the County Council's scheme for giving out trees to people to plant in their gardens. What we're looking to do there is obviously people to come along on Sunday, the 20th of the 3rd, to a number of sites across the county. Apedale Energy Centre, Greenway Bank Visitor Centre, Deep Hayes Visitor Centre, Cannock Chase Visitor Centre, and Chasewater Innovation Centre, where we've got 1,000 trees which people can pick up there and open between 10 and 3 p.m. and plant them in their gardens in commemoration of the Jubilee. And I think it's, the service of Her Majesty for those 70 years is something we can all look up to and aspire to. And I think from my point of view, it's just God save the Queen. Thank you.
Thank you. A lovely picture of yourself on the communication as well. We all saw it. Councillor Councillor David Smith, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I very much welcome this item? We're all going through a very tough several years, and there's awful things in the news. But to have such a fabulous monarch that's been there for 70 years, most of us can't remember life without her. And to be able to celebrate those 70 years is something quite exceptional. And so I really, really welcome the fact that we're going to be able to celebrate the Platinum Jubilee. And I really would ask the portfolio holder whether we have any possibility of being able to bring forward our member fund so that we can do something a little sooner rather than having to wait the normal time, to be able to get funds committed to supporting those activities. The only thing that I see as a slight difficulty, which I think we need as members to deal with locally, where we're dealing with street parties, of course, it's extremely difficult where we make contributions to. And I think that the street parties are going to have to affiliate themselves to some recognised body with a bank account. And I see that as a slight difficulty, but I think we can resolve that as local members. So thank you very much, Chairman.
For information, the Members Fund Committee is meeting after this meeting today. Councillor Victoria Wilson, please.
Thank you. Yes, we are hearing of many, many initiatives around the county, and I'm delighted that people are really putting their backs into plans for the celebrations in June. On the back of that, I'm really, really happy to announce that we will be launching our community fund a little bit earlier than normal, sometime early in April, and no later than the 18th of April, we will be launching that fund. So people are very welcome to apply. The sorts of things other than the Jubilee that we're looking at funding with that is health and caring and supporting each other. But obviously the most important thing is coming out of this really dark period of time is to celebrate our monarch's 70 years on the throne, and the community fund will be able to help with that. Thank you.
That concludes the leader's statement. Item 6, recommendations to the Council. Members Allowance Scheme, Independent Remuneration Panel Report. Councillor Alan White, will you move consideration of the report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move consideration of the Members Allowance Scheme Independent Remuneration Panel Report, and I'm delighted to see Mr. William Reid in the public gallery. Good morning to you, sir, and thank you for the work that you've done. And I'll come back at the end of the debate if anybody has a contribution.
Councillor Philip White, will you second?
Do so, second, Chair.
Do you wish to reserve the right? Councillor Caroline Trowbridge, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the IRP comes under audit and standards, I would like to say a big thank you to the 4 retired professionals who have done some excellent work on addressing inconsistencies. However, there is a price to pay for democracy. The 62 members of this chamber come at a cost of roughly £1 million, yet the 26 top employees from the council come at a cost of roughly £3 million. I'm the first to say how lucky we are to have Mr. John Henderson as our chief exec. But equally so, Councillor Alan White, the leader of the council. The IRP are aware that the allowance is lower than the average of the 12 comparable county councils, and many councillors here work for less than the minimum wage. So the proposal to fully investigate allowance next year is more than welcome. I would like to accept this report and thank the IRP for all their hard work and commitment, and like to see the work that they're up for next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Philip Atkins, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, it's not an easy task recommending what councillors should receive, because over the years we've tended, whenever the Independent Remuneration Panel has acknowledged that we do a lot of work, we tend to vote it down. And so I welcome the report, and I welcome that they're going to look at it in the future. But I do point out that an anomaly, and I don't think they've quite understood what is going on in recommendation B, little 2, and that the constitution to be amended to reflect the pension committee chairman must also chair the pension panel. There are several pensions is really quite a complicated world, and the pension committee allows people to come into the pension fund, organisations that is, decides on people's ability to claim the pension in many times. You know, over the years we've had widows who've remarried and their second husband's died, and then they've applied to continue their local government pension scheme as a widow. The pension panel recommends the strategy for the investment fund and how that's, the pension fund is invested to the pension committee to vet it and say that that is the right strategy. So the pension panel and the 5 members of that, and the member from the pension board and from, there's another one on it as well, recommend how the strategy and the fund is invested, not administered, 2 separate things. So I would say that you need a different chair to the one that's the chairman of the pension committee. I've done the job as chairman of the pension panel for 12 years, And the reason I took it up when I became the leader, and I was on the panel before then, was that if the money isn't invested properly, this council and the taxpayers have to fund the deficit of the local government pension scheme. It was 55% funded in 2009 and was 1.5 billion. It's around about the 100% funded today and is just under £7 billion. When Putin invaded Ukraine, it lost £400 million. That's the sort of scale of money that's invested. And so I think that they haven't quite understood the role of the chairman of the pension panel and the work that's done by the pension board and the pension committee and the pension panel, and they've just thought, we'll put it together and make enough work for a job. So I propose that that is deleted.
Thank you. Councillor Mike Worthington, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Caroline said, as Chair of Audit, I'd like to add my thanks and also thank Mr. Reid for attending today. And I totally agree with Caroline's comments, so I won't add further to that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor David Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. Looking round at the members of the council here, you are all undervalued. If you look at the contribution that you make, the money which we are paid in our allowances is not to be considered as salary. But what would you be doing if you weren't doing that? Because it blocks the time that you have to do other things which may be revenue earning to you as a personal. In my own case, in the 30 years that I've spent serving local councils, I've done it in the same time as I've run my own business. I've been a magistrate. But what it costs to you personally is that I work now as a county councillor for something like 3 days a week. If I was to look at that, all right, so I'm retired and I have a pension, not everybody's in that position. And so where we're looking for new young councillors, how can we persuade them to join us where the personal cost is going to be so considerable? And so really, I think that the time has come for us to be able to look at our remuneration and say, we need to be considering the work people do in the ground and to look at remunerating that in some not massive way, not so that we look like having 20 or 30,000 pounds a year like Birmingham, but that we look at something which is slightly better remunerated than we are currently paid. And I would also ask, Chairman, that we look again at the contribution which is made towards our home offices. We used to get free paper, we used to get free ink for our printers. We don't anymore. That costs me probably £100 a year. I think that we ought to look at what the costs are and what the role is of a councillor and how that cost ought to be covered effectively. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Philip White, do you wish to speak? Councillor Leader.
Thank you, Chairman. I spent quite a long time with the Independent Remuneration Panel during the course of their considerations, and I think I'm fairly clear that Councillor Smith, your microphone's still on. There we go. I think I'm fairly clear that they do give very great consideration to the work of the council. It is an incredibly difficult job for them to do. I think Councillor Trowbridge has made a very valid point. There is a cost to democracy. We do give a lot to be here. Many of us who've got employment have to make space in our diaries each week to fulfil our obligations as a county councillor. And in addition to that, of course, many of us end up working weekends, evenings, and all that goes with the hard work of doing a proper job as a county councillor. Of course, we have to balance the fact that some people perhaps don't do quite as much work as a county councillor, and as a result of that, some of us have to carry a heavier burden than we would otherwise do. So the IRP has that difficult balancing act. But, Mr. Chairman, having given it due consideration, we have those 3 recommendations. I don't know if you wish me to read out the 3 recommendations before consideration, or before a vote of the council, or just table them and take them as read.
I think we'll table them as read.
Okay, thank you.
It has been moved and seconded that the recommendation contained in the report be approved. Is that agreed? Any for contrary? Okay. Item B, Pay Policy Statement 2022-23. Councillor Alan White, will you move the consideration report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move consideration of the Pay Policy Statement.
Councillor Philip White, will you second?
Thank you, Chair. I do so second.
And do you wish to reserve your right? Okay. Councillor Philip White, do you wish to speak? Councillor Leader? It has been moved and seconded that the recommendation in the contained report be approved. Is that agreed? Review of the Constitution. Councillor Worthington, will you move the consideration of the report, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move the recommendation.
Councillor Trowbridge, will you second?
Yes, I'd like to second that, but I would like to speak, if that's okay.
Do you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
I'm happy to speak now.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to thank all the panel members. I chaired this meeting, so I'd just like to thank all the panel members who volunteered huge amounts of time to read through these 300-page documents and come up with such brilliant ideas. The officers were fabulous with us. They took all our ideas on board, and of course they had to go through this document with the law in mind as well. Obviously, this is a fluid document. It's changing every day. But I would suggest that this is done more often, that every year it should be looked at and updated. And if I could chair it next year, I want exactly the same team. So I just wanted to thank everybody, officers and members who were involved in this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor David Smith, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Tucked away on page 80, 4 lines from the bottom, is a point which says that there is a value in carrying out a broad review of scrutiny to ensure that our overview and scrutiny committees are set up to align with the county's outcomes. Chairman, I would look forward to that review taking place. And I really hope that that's going to be a review undertaken by all of us as members. I think that we were imposed during my time as a councillor with the Labour government saying that we had got to run our councils in a particular way. I don't think that that was good in as much as it disenfranchised members from almost making them opponents to the cabinet. And I don't think that that's the way local government ought to operate. I think it's now time that we looked again at scrutiny, not to make massive changes, and I don't propose we debate it now, but I would like to feel that members were able to make a contribution to the way the council is run, rather than to scrutinise the decisions of other people. And so hopefully I look forward to that taking place. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. The Leader of the Council, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can't let this item go past without thanking Councillor Trowbridge for your tremendous amount of work. Councillor Trowbridge, you clearly have a masochistic streak in you, because if you want to go through this every year, you're more than welcome, but I wouldn't recommend it. We try to review the Constitution every few years just to make sure that it hangs together properly, and it is a living document, Mr. Chairman. As things emerge and evolve, we make amendments to the Constitution, but there comes a time periodically where people like Councillor Trowbridge step forward and lead the review. To Councillor Smith's point, I don't think he's thinking about taking us back to the committee system. No, thank you, thank goodness. But certainly, I think we would value a look at the scrutiny arrangements that we have. We have refreshed the scrutiny arrangements after the last election. And if I could ask Councillor Greatorex to contemplate perhaps convening a meeting of his fellow chairs and vice chairs to just make sure that the arrangements that we currently have are fit for the executive arrangements, because I think it's a fair challenge that you put to us, Councillor Smith, actually, and I think we should respond to it accordingly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the recommendation contained in the report be approved. Is that agreed? Item 7, report for Chairman of the Staffordshire Police Fire and Crime Panel. Councillor Peters, will you move consideration of the report, please?
So move, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Julian Pardesi, please.
Thank you, Chair. Towards the end of page 83, there is mention of Stafford Police Station, and I do hope, Chair, that there will be meaningful consultation on the future of Stafford's police station. I'm being asked regularly on the future of this station, and right now, if you find a wallet anywhere in Stafford, you have to go to Cannock in order to be able to hand that in. And residents are feeling abandoned rather than supported. And Chair, particularly in light of recent incidents in which the public has developed, shall we say, negative associations with the police, it is important that face-to-face interactions in places like police stations are seen as being vital to build mutual trust. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That is only 9 to 5 at Cannock as well. With my background in policing, I have the same views as yourself. Councillor Mrs Atkins, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask Councillor Peters whether he was in a position to answer the question I asked on February the 10th in this chamber about the reopening of the community fire station community rooms. I have yet, I believe, to receive a response.
Thank you. Councillor Simon Tagg, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to comment to provide an update on the notes from the 31st of January, particularly the questions asked of the Police and Crime Commissioner relating to street wardens and the cost of those in Newcastle Town Centre. An update on that is that we've got funding confirmed for that between the Borough Council and the Business Improvement District, and those important street wardens that are providing so much security and community safety in our town will continue now for another at least 6 months, hopefully longer. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Anne Edgeler, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And to answer Councillor Pardesi's question about Stafford Police Station, that is exactly the question that I asked of the Police Crime Commissioner at the last meeting, and I'm still waiting for his reply. Thank you.
Councillor Jill Hood, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to ask why our community fire station in Stone, which has long been used by many, many community groups, has suddenly only been taking the Prince's Trust. Fantastic organisation, but we were promised that this was going to be a free facility for groups. So if you could let me know about that, I'd be very grateful. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor John Francis, please.
Just briefly, Chairman, I remember before I got on this council, some years ago, well, before I got on the borough, 20-odd years ago, the Chief Constable of the day, John Gifford, said to me when we were getting a petition up to stop Stafford Police Station closing. He said under the Home Secretary at the time, which is a Labour government, that they'd said that they got to start closing police stations because they were not viable. And John Gifford said to me, Councillor Francis says, they only need a police station for purposes of convicts. You only need police station for the purposes of interviewing criminals. and he said that we can have a hole in the wall, like a cash point, that you can put your driving licence in if you're going to get points on your driving licence. You don't need a police station for that. They're a complete waste of time, a complete waste of money. And that was when the start of closing all the police stations around Staffordshire started. And I think police officers here will know what was going on much better than I will. So this has been going on for the best part of some time, and it's not a new thing.
Thank you. Councillor Peters, would you like to close the debate?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just building around the point that my colleague, Councillor Edgerton, mentioned, it'll be on the next agenda with the Police and Crime Commissioner to address the Staffordshire Police Station. We left him clear and a clear question as to what is the future. We need an answer on that. The opening of fire stations, I had a distinct recollection that Councillor Parday asked me that question at the last meeting. In fact, I checked my notebook during the week and I've sent her an email reply. So apologies for that. I don't know whether she'd be kind enough to look into her email and forward it on to you. I can't give you word for word standing here now, but I have answered that question. Please let me know if your colleague has mislaid it or anything. Councillor Hood's question about Stone, yes, I'll certainly take that forward, and it might well be encompassed in the message that I've passed on to Councillor Parday. But thank you for those questions, and be assured we will be holding the Commissioner to account.
Thank you. I move that the report be received. Is that agreed? Thank you. Item 8. Questions under Standing Order 8. Members, the 6 question answers have been circulated to members and published on our website in accordance with the usual procedure. The questions and answers will be taken as read. I will allow each questioner 5 minutes in order in which to ask a supplementary question and to receive an answer. No debate is allowed on questions. Question 1. Councillor Pritchard to Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Councillor 2, Councillor Daisy to Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Chair. In light of paragraph 2, can we be assured that fracking will not be considered among the potential initiatives to reduce reliance on imported hydrocarbons? There is no way, surely, that we can be considered a council supporting and protecting our environment if we're also supporting fracking. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I haven't been made aware of any government statement yet on energy security. I assume that is still pending for today. But I would say, look at the frequently asked questions section link at the end for the County Council's position. And we await what the government advice is on that or changes of policies. And of course, I will make every member aware of that once we have a position from the government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Question 3. Councillor Atkins to Councillor Jessel, please.
Yeah, just in terms of my supplementary, we would like to see the data as soon as possible, hopefully before the summer, because I believe that leak has been regarded as not a priority for extra care facilities, which surprises me given the relatively aged population within leak and the fact that the one extra care facility that there is there has a waiting list. So if you could allow me to see the data so I could then try to understand why this decision has been taken. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs. Jessel.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. I don't quite know where Councillor Atkins has that information from. I certainly haven't made or seen any document that makes such a recommendation, as this question and the response does highlight that we're undertaking research at the moment. Any data will be shared with members and through the scrutiny process in due course.
Thank you. Councillor Oates to Councillor Alan White, please.
Thank you, Mr Chairman, and could I thank the leader for his commitment to support our bid in Tamworth for the Great British Railways headquarters. Tamworth Borough Council has just adopted a new vision. It simply reads, Tamworth, celebrating our heritage and delivering better futures. With Tamworth's links to the railway, from Bagnall's locomotives to Dalton's insulators on the London Underground Third Rail, this can be seen as a continuation of a relationship that has developed for many, many years, which provides opportunities for growth and opportunities for individuals in the local economy in Tamworth. Could the leader follow up on his answer with a commitment to ensure that Staffordshire County Council is dynamic and flexible enough to assist Tamworth in not only this particular bid, but also taking the opportunity to deliver on the Borough Council's vision?
Councillor Alan White, please.
Thank you very much indeed for the supplementary, Councillor Oates. And I see this publication that's landed on my desk this morning. It's called the Tamworth Champion, Tamworth Town Centre, set for major changes. What a wonderful, wonderful bit of news as a result of investment by the government in Tamworth Borough Council. We've had a long track record in this authority of cooperation with our district and borough colleagues going back many years. We intend to continue to do so in the future. And watch this for a bit of delegation. The Deputy Leader will make sure that we are flexible in our engagement with you over the next few weeks and months as you progress your bid, particularly for the British Rail bid that you are launching, and also the work you're continuing to do with your wonderful town centre. Thank you, Mr Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hussain to Councillor Tagg, please.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I'm grateful for the written answer to the Cabinet Member. Mr Chairman, all we know, once we have reached to the tipping point, we will be powerless to intervene. So on this note, we would like to leave a good legacy for our succeeding generations. If I go back to my honourable friend, Mr Winnington's words, in this planet, we are just the tenants. We just merely leaseholders. We don't own this place. So it sounds so ambitious, and I want to be ambitious, Mr Chairman. We want to see we planted about 1 million trees in our lifetime in this county. So on this note, can I just ask the Cabinet Member if it is possible for him to give us any time frame for the study he mentioned in this in his reply, that we will get any indications about the scope, space in a timely manner, and how we can engage ourselves as community leaders or the councillors to directly, we want to plant those trees. I would be even grateful for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tagg, please.
Thank you, Chair. I share Councillor Hussein's passion for this, and I think we're going to do our bit here in Staffordshire. We've already started to do our bit with those 17,500 trees planted over this season and the next planting season this year. And I think what we've got is our action plan 2, which is a comprehensive document which sets out our plans for not only tree planting, but all the other environmental issues, climate change issues that we want to take forward. And what I will do is I'll set out that in a response to you, which I'll copy all members in, and more on the plans will come that way. And I think very exciting plans, and you can rest assured that we will play our part here in Staffordshire, in our communities, to ensure we do our bit for climate change and for the environmental sustainability of our planet. Thank you.
Thank you. Final question, Councillor Afsar to Councillor Philip White, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to thank the Cabinet Member for his detailed reply, and just applaud him on applaud the Council on the voucher scheme, which is unquestionably shown to be one of the most effective means of combating holiday hunger. Can the Cabinet contemplate extending this beyond Easter 2022? Thank you.
Councillor Philip White, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Afsar. That would be a matter for the portfolio holder for families and children, so I'll refer that matter to him. The funding in question did come from government grant specifically for that purpose, so whether that will be possible or not, I don't know, but I appreciate his recognition of the detail of the extensive work that we do in terms of helping disadvantaged people in our county to further their lives and prosper. Happy to work with him further on that matter as well.
Thank you. Item 9, petitions. Does any member have a petition they wish to present? Councillor Mrs Charlotte Atkins, please.
Month I presented the second tranche of this petition. This is the third tranche which has been sent to me here. And at that time, I asked whether the county highways were listening to Leek residents who were calling for a 20-mile-an-hour limit within the town. Sadly, it was reported to me that the cabinet member, who sadly is not here today, laughed and said no. Well, I know that highways are trying to be much more consumer-focused. So I wondered whether, that it's pointless presenting petitions, because certainly the lead petitioner, Mr. Roger Warrilow, believes that there is a importance of the County Council listening to residents, and he's out there in all weathers collecting signatures, and I wouldn't want to think that he's wasting his time. So I hope that I'll have a reassurance that the voices of Leek residents are being listened to, and that the county highways will look at the issue of the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit within the town. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Exclusion of public. There are no items for public to be excluded. We've finished a little bit early today, so I will try and get lunch brought forward if it's possible. For those who are meeting at 3 o'clock for the Members' Committee meeting, we'll now bring that forward to 2 o'clock to get that finished. But this is the last civic meeting of this council of this year, as the next one will be the AGM. So as Chairman, I would like to thank the CEO, Mr John Henderson, and all his staff for the assistance they have given us as members throughout this year. I would also like to thank, though, the lead of the council and the cabinet for the assistance they've given us as members, and me as chairman particularly for the assistance they've given us as well. It's not always easy. Backbench members can easily moan about cabinet decisions or whatever. So it really is good that we are all working together through this civic year. So just from me and the people of Staffordshire, thank you to the officers, thank you to the cabinet, and thank you to all as members of this council for the work you've put in over what's been a very, very, very difficult year. We know we're not through it all yet, as Councillor McMahon always tells us, but hopefully we're getting there. So until our next full council meeting, the AGM, can I wish you all a pleasant couple of months. I know we're still working hard to get there and to assist our residents, but thank you to everybody.